Okay, philosophers, last part of propositional logic, we're talking about today biconditionals. There's actually a lot to be said about biconditionals, but I'm going to keep it on a fairly intuitive level. I'm going to try to keep it on a fairly intuitive level. Biconditionals are, well, conditionals are the same thing as like another word for hypotheticals. Conditional is to say if P then Q. So a biconditional is to go both ways. Say if P then Q and if Q then P. So P double arrow Q, we're going to define that. It's going to say that's going to mean P if and only if Q. You may in math classes you may see P if double F Q, right? And it means that if and only if Q. Also sometimes it's symbolized like this. Three that should be like three equal lines, but so P if and only if Q. It's biconditionals are very important for philosophers because a lot of times we'll use these to show that what one thing is reducible to another, or to show that one thing is a definition of another, or something like that. So biconditionals become very important, and biconditionals, if we look at things the way we did when we saw those Venn diagrams, it's like saying this: if you're in P, you're in Q, and if you're in Q, you're in P. Also, if you're outside of P, you're outside of Q, and if you're outside of Q, you're outside of P, right? So that's P if and only if Q. Another way to look at that is this. If we write P if and only if Q, there are four different options of what could be the case. If my two propositional parameters are just P and Q, I have four different options. One is that both of them are true. One is that Q is false, but P is true. One is that P is false, but Q is true. And one is that P is false and Q is false. Now, if I say P if and only if Q, two of these are not possible, right? It's not. I can't say I'm inside of P, but I'm not inside of Q, right? I can't say that I'm not inside of P, but I am inside of Q. So the only two that are possible are both P and Q are true, or both P and Q are false. So you can imagine the way that we're going to get some kind of conclusion out of this, P if and only if Q, is we're going to either say we have one of them, therefore we have the other, or we're going to say we don't have one of them, therefore we don't have the other, right? So again, this is these two options. P if and only if Q. P is true. Well, my only option, right? Because this is not an option anymore. My only option is that Q is true, and of course the reverse works for that too. Q is true, therefore P is true. It should be Q. And then down here, same thing. P if and only if Q, not P, right? My only option for not P, since this one's been crossed out, is not Q. So those are two ways of getting something out of biconditionals. Another thing to note is that biconditionals, excuse me, P if and only if Q is the same thing as saying P if Q and P only if Q, right? That's P if and only if Q. But remember from when we were talking about conditionals, or like I call them hypotheticals, P only if Q is the same as saying if P then Q. P if Q is the same thing as saying if Q then P, right? So P if Q means if Q then P. P only if Q is the same thing as saying if P then Q, right? So what you have here is if Q then P and if P then Q. So if P if and only if Q, you have if Q then P, and you have if P then Q, right? So if you have A and B, you can see it over here, right? P if and only if Q turns into these. If they're looking at just at this part right here, A and B, there should be parentheses around these, by the way. But if you're looking at this, just this right here, A and B, it's this format, right? This is A and this is B. And remember, in conjunctions, what we get, we can say that either one of them is true. Therefore A, and we can also say therefore B. So if you say P if and only if Q, then you can get if P then Q out of it, and you can get if Q then P out of it, right? Because so in other words, P if and only if Q is like saying both of these two things are true, okay? And if you have, and vice versa too, if you have P if P then Q, and if Q then P, then the two of these come together to make if P if and only if Q. They're equivalent, in other words. Alright, I hope that wasn't super confusing. I don't feel like I explained it great, but we'll see how it went. let's do a little practice. Again, like I said, I'm going to keep it on a very intuitive level. I'm not going to go too far into the way the rules are all applied. It's a party if and only if people are doing philosophy. It's a party, so people are doing philosophy. What would that look like? It looks like so. A for party, H for philosophy. It's an A if and only if it's an H. It is an A, therefore it's an H, and that is valid, right? Because this is saying A if and only if H. If you have A, then you're going to have H, and if you have H, you're going to have A. You have A, therefore you have H. It's a party if and only if people are doing philosophy. Nobody's doing philosophy, but it's still a party. This would be A if and only if H, not H, therefore A, and that is invalid, right? What we said is if you have A, then you have to have H, and if you have H, then you have to have A. Well, here we're saying we have A, but up here we're saying we don't have H. That's not right. That's not what we said there. I said it if and only if I meant it. I said it, so I meant it. S if and only if M. S, therefore M. That is valid. I said it if and only if I meant it. I didn't mean it, but I said it. S if and only if M, not M, therefore S. That is invalid. You can see it's kind of hard to make an invalid one that sounds like it makes sense, right? It's hard to say S if and only if M and then have two different things here. They just don't sound right. I said it if and only if I meant it. I meant it, so I said it. Again, S if and only if M. This time M, therefore S, and that is valid. Alright, let's try something a little bit different. If it's a party, I'll be there. If I'm there, it's a party, so it's a party if and only if I'm there. Okay, so the way it looks is this. If P, then I'll be there. If P, then B. If I'll be there, then it's a party. If B, then P. Now remember, and therefore if P, if and only if B. Remember what I said, whenever you have these two things right here, it's equivalent to this one right here. So this is valid. What about this? If it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. So fix it if and only if it's broke. What does this look like? If not B, then not F. So F if and only if B, and that is invalid. Oddly enough, if you were to also have not F, then not B, you would have F if and only if B. Why? Because not F if and only if not B, these two are actually equivalent, right? Remember our four options, right? We had either both of them are true, either one is true and the other is false, either or the other is true and the first one is false, or both of them are false. Well, the same thing applies here, right? So either both of these are true, right? Not F is true and not B is true, or both of them are false. In other words, F is true and B is true, because if F is not F is false, F is true, right? But those are the same two things that are true on this one. So actually, this is almost a valid argument. Wear distance glasses if and only if you have myopia. You have myopia, so you should wear. You shouldn't weed anything. You should. Looks like sweat. You should sweat distance glasses. This looks like this. G if and only if M. M therefore G, and that is valid. So this is a little trickier. This first sentence is a categorical proposition, but you can turn it into hypotheticals. You can turn these into hypotheticals. So, all Cretans are liars, so you are Cretan if and only if you are a liar. Alright. Now think, how would you say, what does this mean? Does it mean all liars are Cretans and all Cretans are liars? No, just all Cretans are liars. So, if you are a Cretan, then you are a liar. Right? So, if C, then L. Therefore, C if and only if L, and that obviously is invalid. You'd have to have if L, then C up here to make this valid. Finally, well, let's see. All Cretans are liars and all liars are Cretans. So you are a liar if and only if you are a Cretan. If C, then L, and if L, then C. Therefore, L if and only if C, and that is valid. This is a short one. Enjoy the rest of your day.